Let me play this ad again so we can all get on the same page. This is one of Trump's ads. Kamala's agenda is they, them, not you.
He murdered a father of 3, sentenced to life in prison. Kamala Harris pushed to use tax dollars to pay for his sex change.
I made sure that they changed the policy so that every transgender inmate would have access.
It sounds insane because it is insane. Kamala was the first to help pay for a prisoner's sex change.
The power that I had, I used it in a way that was about pushing for the movement, frankly, and the agenda.
Kamala's agenda is they, them, not you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Perfect ad there, right? Okay. So we got to focus on the marginalized. That's what this is all about for the left. It's all about the marginalized always because, equity, as Kamala would say. So the person who's featured in that ad, I'll just go really quick. We did this an hour ago, so I'll do the quick version. Shiloh Heavenly Quin. It's the first person to receive taxpayer-funded sex change operation while in prison in California under Kamala Harris, of course, that she so proudly talked about. The guy's real name is Rodney. Now goes by Shiloh Heavenly. Shiloh Heavenly kidnapped a guy, kidnapped that father of 3, murdered him, stole $80, serving life in prison. And says now in the women's prison, it's not all perfect. In fact, it's quite terrible over here in the women's prison even because I have not yet had my lips done. She said, I just saw the doctor yesterday, though, and I'm getting some feminization for my face because it turns out the hormones I was on quit working. I'm getting my lips done. I'm getting other facial surgery. But she says every time she wants to do every time he wants to do something, he has to, it's like a legal process. He says, I have to litigate everything. I file grievances to stand up for what's right. Lip injections are for what's right. Then we told a story of a couple in Newport Beach who were selling a boat. This guy came, answered the ad, said, hey, let's take it for a spin. Hit him with a stun gun, tied him to the anchor, forced them to give their bank account information and sign a deed of sale, and then threw them overboard, killed them. And then when police came searching for the couple, they went to their boat, and the guy's like, oh, yeah, no, they sold me the boat here. They signed the deed of sale, and I don't know, they just drove off, and I haven't seen him since. I don't know. That's John Julius Jacobson. He now goes by Skylar Precocia de Leon. The woman who was killed, it was the couple, the guy who murdered husband and wife. The mom said they killed people, right? Took people's life. He killed my daughter and son-in-law, and now he gets what he wants. Last year in California, the state says they can only handle 3 sex change operations a week. 3 a week. 3 a week. That's all we can do right now. There were 462 requests. The mom said, I was a registered Democrat, but I've changed since then. I think the Democrats have gone berserk. All of them. Harris is too lenient. This is Kamala Harris. This is a perfect example of a California Democrat, Kamala Harris.
I was Attorney General. I learned that the California Department of Corrections, which was a client of mine, I didn't get to choose my clients.
Right, a client of the Attorney General.
A client of the Attorney General,
right.
Of the Office of Attorney General, that they were standing in the way of surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. And there was a specific case. And when I learned about the case.
Do you need to repeat on the specific case? Was the guy who murdered someone in LA in 1980 for $80. That was the specific case. That's Shiloh Heavenly.
I worked behind the scenes to not only make sure that transgender...
This Kamala Harris, as the Attorney General, heard the story of Shiloh Heavenly. Well, what was he in for? Murdered a guy. And Kamala decided to work behind the scenes because Shiloh is marginalized.
Case. I worked behind the scenes to not only make sure that transgender woman got the services she was...
Rodney is who she's talking about. She's talking about Rodney.
the services she was deserving. So it wasn't only about that case.
Deserving.
I made sure that they changed the policy in the state of California so that every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Yes, like John Jacobson, who tied a couple to an anchor and threw them overboard off of Newport Beach. Thank goodness. Thank goodness John Jacobson has the care that he deserves.
To the medical care that they desired and need. And I believe it was not only, I know it was historic in California, but I believe actually it may have been one of the first, if not the first in the country, where I pushed for that policy in a Department of Corrections.
Someone wrote, why is this marginal issue so important to these people? Okay. It's important because of a couple of reasons. First, it's the craziest thing imaginable. Name something more insane. Like the story that Mike Rogers was sharing about EPA mandates against tailpipe emissions in such a restrictive way that it is in effect an EV mandate, and then giving $1 billion in cash and tax exemptions to a Chinese company, an already communist subsidized Chinese company, to build a battery plant in Michigan, while Slatkin signs an NDA for some reason where she can't talk about it. Like, what is that? Politicians sign NDA, the non-disclosure agreements. What? Like, that's crazy. It's like horrible, would corrupt all the rest. This is crazier. This is like lunatic stuff. But it's a beautiful insight into her worldview, which is all about the marginalized, where the marginalized can do no wrong. And who are marginalized? All criminals. All criminals are marginalized. They're marginalized because they're criminals, because they would never commit a crime if they didn't need to, if they weren't so hungry. Remember we shared last week the story of the guy, or the train in Chicago. There's like 100 people who broke into this train and were stealing big screen TVs. And a guy called in and was like, oh, well, you know. It's like, what? Huh? What do you mean? What do you mean, oh, well, you know? No. There's no, like, well, you know, people are hungry and crimes of necessity. You know? Crimes of necessity. They stole a bunch of big screen TVs out of the back of a train. But that's how people view the marginalized. You can do no wrong. And the most marginalized are transgender people. But every minority has some claim to marginalization. All black people do because they were slaves. That's why even in San Francisco, California in entirety, but also San Francisco specifically, has a reparations plan for all black people in San Francisco, even though California was never a slave state. California's never a slave state, but they have a reparations plan in San Francisco. So everyone, except for me, has a claim to marginalized status. By me, I mean, you know, straight white male. Even if you're a murderer, you can commit a horrific pre-planned crime. But if you then claim you're trans, then that trumps everything. And now you're a hero. Now, someone called in earlier and said, well, you know, people in California voted for this. Like, yeah, they did. Yeah, they absolutely did. There's no question. And they love it. They love it. People in California love it.